Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's 2 for Tuesday. That means this is the second live stream we're doing today. We did a whole show earlier, and because Tuesday is the 2 for day, I don't know why it rhymes. No, it doesn't even rhyme. It's alliteration. Because of the alliteration, there are 2 streams, and because I love yous. Well, somebody better pick up that phone, because I called it. I will always use that DBZ abridged line because it's great. Yeah, Fox News is using the January 6th footage to tell a story that is untrue. They're selectively grabbing it. And, of course, the GOP schism is growing about it because more and more GOP folks are having to decide whether or not they want to try their scam in a country that has law and reason, or if they think their money-making scam of bleeding the American people will still function in a country that is just a pure dictatorship. That's the decision they have to make. And of course, the old guard is against the idea of having just a dictatorship because they've done fine as is. It's worth pointing out as well, we talked on this stream about how CNN may replace Fox because Fox's position increasingly is becoming untenable. The evidence of that is mounting, and David Pakman talked about it. I'm excited to talk about all this. Let's dive in because the Young Turks showed us how to respond to Fox News. So, for the purposes of editing, I'm going to take a whack at this intro again. The Young Turks recently gave a great, segment. They did a great segment on how to address the misinformation coming out of Fox News regarding this January 6th footage that they have exclusive access to. Here they are. I'm going to talk to you a little. I'm going to add a little bit onto the end, but let's let John Iadarola and company discuss.
The surveillance footage we reviewed shows that famous clip was a sham, edited deceptively by the January 6th committee. The clip was propaganda, not evidence.
They're referring, of course, to the clip of Josh Hawley fleeing for his life, as these other folks are, amid the riot that Fox is partially responsible for.
The actual videotape shows that Hawley was one of many lawmakers being ushered out of the building by Capitol Hill police officers.
Why were they being ushered out of the building? Why were they literally fleeing the building?
And in fact, Hawley was at the back of the pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many from the January 6th committee.
That is one of the most amazing attempts at propaganda that I think I've ever seen.
Wait a minute. I don't think they talk about this. Let's go back just a little bit. Because they tried to cut the tape off. Look at the opposite side here.
Pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many from the January 6th committee.
Whoops. You see that last bit they tried to cut out? Look at that last bit they tried to cut out before their end of their segment.
Pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many from the January 6th committee.
You can even see him recycling the footage. Yeah, it appears he wasn't even at the back of the pack. There was indeed somebody else fleeing. That person reaching out and saying, oh, come here, we got to get you out of here. But TYT talks brilliantly. That aside, they talk brilliantly about what exactly that footage that they just showed again on air, what that means.
That is one of the most amazing attempts at propaganda that I think I've ever seen on American corporate media. So the coward tape is the tape that was played during the January 6th hearings of Josh Hawley running as fast as he can to get away from the mob that had attacked the Capitol. And that apparently hurt Tucker's feelings because he has to try to refute it. And he does that by just saying it was a lie over and over and over again. But I would ask you a question. Is that what he actually proved? Is that what he demonstrated? First of all, he says it's a lie because it wasn't just Holly running away, it was a lot of lawmakers running away. Let me ask you a question. When it was presented before the January 6th committee, did anyone say or even imply that this should be embarrassing for Hawley because he's the only person that's running away? Nobody said that. We said that Hawley, who was all fist in the air, super strong beforehand, was running for his life. He still was running for his life. And I love that Tucker thinks that because he was in the back of the pack, he's pitching that as he's brave because he's taking up the rear. Dude was slower than the rest of the people running. I don't find that to be impressive or laudable at that point. And let me also say that if your overall point, which it is for Tucker, is that none of them should have been afraid, you're undercutting your point a little bit when you point out that not only was Josh Hawley afraid, but all of them were running for their life, from the people who were apparently just taking selfies and all of that.
Okay, so if MAGA goes to you and tries to say Josh Hawley tape, it was all fake, just point that out. What was fake? It wasn't just Josh Hawley running. Lots of people were running. So see, the corporate media, they won't say corporate media. So see, the fake news lied to you about Josh Hawley. Nobody even suggested that he was the only one fleeing. In fact, the larger point was that people were fleeing, and that included Josh Hawley. In other words, it would be less bad if it had only been Josh Hawley that panicked and ran away. In fact, it was people being evacuated, and Josh Hawley was among them. And he literally was running for his life.
But all of them were running for their life, from the people who were apparently just taking selfies and all of that. So again, what he actually shows in this video does not prove his thesis at all. The issue is that he's showing it to his audience who just desperately wants to believe that simultaneously nothing bad was happening, but I guess also I need to believe that all of them were running away. But Hawley was last, so I guess he's brave, even though he was, again, running from the vicious mob that was calling for their blood. So again, Amara, for his
just want to be absolutely clear. Listen to all the contradictions you have to believe simultaneously about January 6th. If you are MAGA, listen to all the contradictions you need to hold simultaneously at one time in your head.
Wants to believe that simultaneously nothing bad was happening, but I guess also I need to believe that all of them were running away. But Hawley was last, so I guess he's brave, even though he was, again, running from the vicious mob that was calling for their blood. So again,
we can use that. Just point that out when you are talking to MAGA. I'm assuming that just based on the percentage of people that voted for Trump, we had 77 million? You probably know somebody who holds those contradictions in their head. They will be uncomfortable dwelling on that. They will try desperately to move the conversation to something else. Don't let them move on the conversation if you're having it. Don't let them move that conversation beyond that point until they're down to just one reality that they believe. Was it Antifa that stormed the Capitol? What? Where are they? Was the Capitol not stormed? Well, what about Antifa? You said Antifa was the one that stormed the Capitol. So was the Capitol not invaded? Was it not dangerous, or did Antifa do it? If it was anti-fascists, why is there no footage of anti-fascists? Why were none of the social media accounts that streamed it anti-fascist? Why were they all MAGA psychopaths? Was Josh Hawley in the back of the pack fleeing? If that's the case, why did they have to flee at all? What other election did they have to flee during? None. Keep it on there. Keep the conversation in an uncomfortable place, because it should only be uncomfortable for MAGA.
And Amara, for his audience, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that need to be done for this. But I'm sure that they will, in the end, agree with Tucker that the video, which again shows him running for his life, was somehow a lie.
Yeah, I mean, they'll believe whatever they want to believe, right? And he knows what his audience wants to believe, and he's going to give it to them. I mean, I personally though was impressed with Josh Hawley's running for him. I thought it was quite good. I don't know. Do we know? Is he an athlete or something? I was like, his back is straight, and his legs are out in front of him in a good stride. Yeah, I mean, it was
the core tight.
Quite impressive. Quite impressive.
100.
Also, bear in mind, the purpose of what Fox is doing is not really to get their audience to believe their version of events. They realize how contradictory it is. They realize they can't carry on a conversation holding these contradictions. The purpose is just to get them saying, all media lies, though. That is from the fascist playbook, folks. That is precisely, and this is not an exaggeration. It's not taking it too far to say this. That is precisely what the Nazis did. They just want their audience to say, you know what? But MSNBC lies. This is all lies. It's all you have to believe your truth. You have to have your personal truth. That kind of nonsense. There is no such thing as your truth or my truth. There is the truth and everything else. That's it. There are the facts and nothing else. Do not let them get away with that. Don't let them get away with just saying, but you have to take it all with a grain of salt. No. You're recommending MAGA psychopaths. You're recommending that we do drastic things, very un-American things, like, for example, shutting down prosecutors, prosecuting corrupt politicians. And you're doing it based off of lies. You have to be firm in that when you are talking with these people.
So here is where things are going to turn a little bit dark. We had a little bit of fun with the coward video and everything, but that very meek mob of tourists, okay, they revere the Capitol. They're not doing anything bad, despite him repeatedly showing the footage of them doing really bad things. Can I throw out a few inconvenient facts about that, as Amara has said, a bridge group of your grandmas who are just trying to take photos with the paintings and all that? Does anyone remember 4 people in the crowd died? Those very meek, orderly tourists, 4 people died. And I'm gonna point this out in case maybe you haven't been on these tours before or whatever. That's not normally what happens when you tour the Capitol, that 4 people die in the crowd. And by the way, only one of them, Ashley Babbitt, was shot by a Capitol police officer as they were trying to break through the barricade to get to. There are security officers with drawn guns, and the crowd is so bloodthirsty that they're trying to get at the people pointing guns at them. Again, very, very meek people. Kevin Grierson died of a heart attack. Roseanne Boyland appeared to have been crushed in a stampede of fellow meek rioters. Benjamin Phillips died of a stroke. He was the founder of a pro-Trump website called Trumparoo, but everything was so meek and orderly.
Worth pointing out, Roseanne Boyland appeared to be on methamphetamines of some point, of some kind, I should say, during that riot. I would ask MAGA folks what they think about those deaths, because they do tend to ignore them. Don't spare them the discomfort of this conversation. I will say it again and again. Don't spare them. Also, bear in mind, on this stream, it was pointed out, what will Tucker Carlson do? He will take the most innocent clips of police leading around January 6th people, directing them where to go, and he will pretend as though the police told the January 6th rioters that they were welcome. That is not true. That is simply not true. And if you would like to rebut that, be sure to show them there's tons and tons of footage. It is all over the internet. The crowd literally fighting police officers who are literally swinging fists and clubs trying to stop them from getting inside. How kind the police were once they had been defeated and they were on a retreat. Our police, our Capitol Police, were retreating from the crowd, were defeated by the crowd, failed to stop the crowd, not because they weren't brave, but because there was a ludicrous amount of MAGA rioters there. There was 10,000 there. And they were pathetically understaffed by design. Point that out. Make them live in that reality for the conversation.
That people were having strokes and heart attacks all over the place. Of course, you also have 5 police officers who died in the weeks and months following it. Brian Sicknick was attacked by the mob. He died. Jeffrey Smith killed himself after the attack because it was so traumatic what he went through. Howard Liebengood as well. 150 police officers, who Republicans occasionally like to pretend that they back in some fashion, were injured, had to be hospitalized. Hundreds of workers at the Capitol were also attacked or traumatized by the mob. The mob, who was they were just tourists. They were just meek tourists queuing up for selfies and maybe beating into the hospital dozens and dozens of cops. Again, Amara, we've talked about their willingness to believe what they want to believe.
Whoa. Well, let's pause that. Good God. So, it's pretty simple what you can do about this. It's in fact going to be fun. If you find yourself in a conversation with MAGA folks, just ask them uncomfortable questions about their propaganda, the propaganda itself, and let them squirm. Don't help them out in any social ways. Don't when there is silence, when they're stuttering, don't offer something that might be helpful to them. Just ask them, why were legislators running? Why were they literally running in that clip Tucker Carlson showed you? For most of them, by the way, for a lot of them, this will be some of the first January 6th footage they saw. Did you hear what Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, by the way, I used to say that name wrong, Midas Touch corrected me, thank you. Laura Ingraham and Rupert Murdoch said about you? Do you know how many people died during the riot? During the riot, it's 4. Because of the riot, in some way, it's 7. That includes the suicides. God help us. Ask him those questions because they will have trouble answering them. Let's look at some comments. Patrick Kibido says a Capitol tour isn't like a vacation cruise. They don't have a body count. Yeah, it's we're going to be entering the realm of the ridiculous over the next couple of months because the time between now and the first indictment for Trump, which it's inevitable. That's going to be when they try hardest to rile up their mob, and that is when the craziest things are going to be said. Because they're going to be trying to stop the indictments. After that, however, facts are going to be coming out in court. And any news organization that wants to talk about it is going to have to deal with those facts. And then we're going to see the nation recover a little bit of its sanity. However, let's talk a little bit about what the GOP schism looks like right now. On MSNBC, they addressed the growing GOP schism and the fact that Mitch McConnell is firmly, the leader in the Senate, majority leader in the Senate, is firmly coming out on the side of sanity And that's going to have a huge effect overall. Here it is.
Speaker McConnell chose to associate himself with Chief Manger, not Tucker Carlson. Let me show you that.
With regard to the presentation on Fox News last night, I want to associate myself entirely with the opinion of the chief of the Capitol Police about what happened on January 6th. Clearly, the chief of the Capitol Police, in my view, correctly describes what most of us witnessed firsthand on January 6th. So that's my reaction to it. It was a mistake, in my view, for Fox News to depict this in a way that's completely at variance with what our chief law enforcement official here at the Capitol thinks.
Now, we don't throw parades for people who can't just come out and say it's bullshit. Hiding behind the chief of police is fine for today. I guess that counts as courage in today's Republican Party, Frank. But interesting that you have, I mean, there's no divide on Earth One where all Democrats, all independents, and a growing swath of Republicans live. But there's an emerging
no smoke being tossed their way here, but I do want to say, look, I agree that McConnell could have good Lord, McConnell could have come out stronger against that. All right, yeah, he could have, but the fact is, this is a good thing that he's done. Now, right now, because I said that, hell just got a little bit colder. I rarely agree with Mitch McConnell. But at the end of the day, he was pretty clear. Tucker Carlson's wrong. The head of the Capitol Police is correct. What more do you want him to say to his audience? I mean, or rather, the people who will listen to what he has to say. I think that is, if not worthy of outright praise, it's worthy of a pass on the finger wagging. But I would not want to put the brakes on anyone in corporate media actually taking a whack at the GOP. So I'm going to go easy on it.
Split on the right, where Tucker Carlson, Kevin McCarthy, and Donald Trump have a closed circuit that is deeply invested in revising the history, as Tucker Carlson and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump all know it actually went down. I mean, the January 6th committee makes clear that Trump knew he lost. I mean, the evidence is so abundant, it makes you want to skip over this part of the story. But I wonder what you make of and what impact it will have on this climate to have the most powerful Republican in the Senate align himself with law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm grateful not only for the chief's statement, which was absolutely necessary, although sad that it was necessary, but I'm grateful for the endorsement of that statement by Senator McConnell, because really, if there's any benefit at all, and it's hard to see any, to what Tucker Carlson is doing this week, it's that it's causing people to choose sides. We're choosing up sides here. The sides are.
So we're talking about, when he says people to choose sides, sane Americans don't have to choose sides. Sane Americans know exactly what is correct. Effing indict Donald Trump already. But when he's saying choose sides, he means amongst the GOP. They have to choose sides. In other words, the schism that's been talked about on this network almost since its inception has been growing. And that is only good for us. That's good for sane Americans electorally. That's good for sane Americans in terms of legislation. That's good across the board. I also want to point something out, because I failed to mention it in the past. Mitch McConnell is leader of the Senate. Why does the Senate tend to act a little bit more middle of the road than the House, because in the Senate, they're elected by a much larger swath of their state. Whereas in the House, they are just their district. That I've already mentioned. What I have not mentioned is that the Senate were the ones fleeing in that tape. A lot of the people in the Senate right now lived through January 6th. They were on the receiving end of January 6th, and they have a lot less patience for the nonsense conspiracy theories. Remember Lindsey Graham, out of breath, exasperated, saying, I'm out. Enough is enough. They were scared, and they genuinely don't want that to happen again. So expect the Senate to take the side of sanity and expect the House to keep being crazy. If you want to know who to watch, you watch the House for the craziest stuff and the Senate for the GOP's version of middle of the road, which is still insanely right-wing, as a rebuttal.
Truth or fiction, law and order, or crime and disorder. What side are you on? A peaceful election and transition of power, or violence because you don't like what happened in a lawful vote? Those are the sides that Tucker's choosing, causing people to choose. And so it's not just about fabrication. It's not just about, oh, I'm showing a balanced portrayal of what happened on January 6th. But rather, I've heard some people say, well, it's the calm. He's showing just the calm before the storm. He's showing the calm without the storm. That's a problem, because it's the storm that is the focus of now 1,000. We are officially at 1,000 arrests regarding violence and trespass and obstruction of Congress at the Capitol on January 6th. Speaking of that charge, one of the people, the QAnon shaman, who is the subject of about 2 minutes of Tucker Carlson's clip of him wandering around looking for doors and the police escorting him, trying to figure out what he's up to, trying to do the right thing and not get into a fist fight that could lead to a fist fight with 2,000 other people, and they're outnumbered. So, if you understand the psychology of crowds and law enforcement and crowd control, be careful about the battle you pick, because you could find yourself flat on your back real quickly and outnumbered. So
that is so true. When you see, exactly as we warned about on this channel before Tucker's ridiculous coverage, when you see those officers seeming to treat rioters nicely, bear in mind they had just lost a fist fight. The loser of a fist fight tends to be real polite. That's simple.
Let's talk about the QAnon shaman. Marjorie Taylor Greene, after Tucker's clip last night, went on social media and said, well, clearly the shaman needs a new trial. He was doing nothing wrong. There is no new trial to have. You know why he didn't have a trial? He pled guilty. He was read the charges against him. He was showing the evidence against him. And he said, yeah, I did do that and I regret it. Guilty. No trial necessary. So that's what we're dealing with here, is a complete absence of truth. And what's it about? Is it really minimizing what happened on January 6th? What's the real purpose? Look, we don't only have the potential existential threat by Dominion's lawsuit against Fox, but we have a former president who may be looking at indictment for what? Inciting the violence on January 6th. If you minimize what happened on January 6th, and it's a collective yawn, then why are we indicting a former president for it?
The other purpose is simply so that Republicans can feel like they have a rebuttal to was January 6th a crime. They don't need to have the information. They just need the general sense that there is such a thing as a reasonable right-wing rebuttal to whether or not a crime occurred. And if they have that, they can then turn their brains off. That's the issue. So what can you do about it? Ooh, boy. Well, bear in mind, this is part of a growing schism. We are going to have people leaving the Republican Party. The kind of folks that voted for Mitch McConnell in his state are very likely to start looking at maybe the Democratic Party if they see big names becoming Democrats. It wouldn't shock me to see a lot more senators become Democratic senators, simply because staying in the far right of the country, as opposed to the normal right-wingers that are corporate Democrats, it involves appealing to people that just don't exist in the reality that you're trying to legislate. You can't make a pitch for laws to those people because they won't think any of the pitches you're going to make are related to their problems. Vote as left as you can. We need to offset the incoming influx of right-wing opinion. In the primaries, get as far left as you can. In the upcoming primaries, get as far left as you can, because we have got to make sure that the Democratic Party that takes power, let's hope, in 2024 in the House, Senate, and in the presidency, is not so watered down with right-wingers. And if you want to know what that looks like, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema tanked some of the best legislation that was coming out. We need to make sure that they are offset by actual left-wing opinions in what is supposed to be America's left-wing party. Granny P says, so McConnell mildly speaks the truth by holding up a piece of paper without verbally reiterating what was said by the chief of police, shaking my head. Yeah. That is as close to bravery as I expect from a GOP senator. It's not much, but I'll take it because it is a sign of the sign of which way this whole game is going is in the Senate. Granny also says, oh yes, let's watch Holly haul ass through the halls again and again and again. Absolutely. The Benny Hill theme behind that clip is so good. Patrick Thibodeau says, mistake? In a court, something done with malice aforethought is a crime. Wholeheartedly agreed. And Franny agrees. She says, well said. Yes. Patrick, that's... I think we are quickly approaching the time where we cannot afford to ignore this anymore. If you saw my last stream regarding, or yesterday's stream, you will be aware that we have already passed by, I think, 32 of Trump's 56 suspected crimes that we can punish. Literally, it has taken Merrick Garland so long to get even one indictment, one single charge of formally and officially put in court against Trump, that we've lost the ability to even do that for half the crimes he did. This year, half of the remaining crimes are also going to expire. The statute of limitations will be up. There'll be nothing we can legally do about it. I will point out, though, if we get this guy, and there's another stream coming on this, if we get this guy on RICO charges, racketeering, yada, yada, corrupt, whatever, if we get a RICO case against this guy, suddenly we can charge those older crimes. Because if they are if we see them as part of an organized crime ring, which is what Trump's administration was, they're back on the table. And the reason that exists is specifically for what we've seen in Trump. Powerful bosses just delaying court cases and making sure they never directly say to underlings what they want them to do. They just hint at it and put pressure on them until they do what they want them to do. That is why RICO was invented, and we should be taking advantage of it. I just don't trust that Merrick Garland would dare try to actually go after a powerful person. Well, something else we said a little bit ago on this channel was that CNN more and more looks like it is in a position to take Fox's audience. Might have seemed silly when I was saying it at the time, but it's funny that the more people say something, the less silly that concept becomes. Might have seemed silly because, you know, CNN is one of the people that even Trump was railing against. Oh, fake news CNN, yada, yada, yada. Well, here's David Pakman talking about that very concept getting popularized out there in the wild. Here he is.
Will CNN become the new Fox News in 2024? Many of you have been emailing me about this. Failed former President Donald Trump has been actually suggesting to CNN, listen, if you want to pick up on what Fox News used to be, you should actually.
Trump himself telling CNN, hey, there's a big audience there. It's realistic, folks.
Actually become the right-wing network, and people would flock, and advertisers would flock, and Trump would flock. So let's actually explore this. This is an interesting media story. The natural reaction, you might be saying, Fox, CNN becoming Fox, it doesn't make sense. Isn't Fox News the conservative network that's been dominating for decades? Yes, but things are changing pretty quickly, and it is true that politics can make some pretty strange bedfellows. So let's discuss what is going on. As you, I'm sure, know, Fox News has been the go-to channel for the American right wing. And I'm using that particular term as opposed to for Trump supporters or for fiscal conservatives or for Republicans or for whatever the case may be, because it's been the default cable outlet agenda-setting power for the American right wing. And it's where the right got their news, even though much of it was actually opinion disguised as news. They got their opinions, they got their talking points, but then came Donald Trump. Initially, Trump was not.
Let's pause it. Oh, Christ, I'm sorry, David Pakman. Hey, there we go. Let's pause it there for a second. So, why is it not a crazy idea? What was the purpose of Fox News? Because he's going to go down a lane that I think describes it well, but it leaves out, in my opinion, one of the core reasons Fox existed at all. If you're familiar with what neoliberalism is, you won't be surprised by this. If you're not, here's the quick definition. It is essentially saying that any regulation on capitalism is bad. Capitalism is the only way to solve any disagreement. Big business must have no regulations. That is neoliberalism. Fox, in fact, all of the major networks, more or less, are in on this idea. But Fox was a propaganda outlet for it. CNN is pretty close to that. CNN is now what Fox was in 2000. And they seem quite reasonable because they are, in fact, willing to call out direct lies about politics. They are not. And the reason I started saying, look, CNN's a reasonable company to look at as far as a replacement for Fox. They are not willing to call out direct lies about corporations. They had Bernie, I think they had Bernie Sanders on. Oh, that was MSNBC. But they are not likely to have people on that are going to have an opinion that corporations are the problem. I still feel bad about that, Pakman. Still, there we go. In addition, CNN is, well, let's just say it like this. CNN is where the billionaires will say, by supporting this media outlet, we make more money. By supporting this media outlet, we're going to get more people voting for people that give us bigger tax breaks. So let's support this media outlet. It's essentially what it comes down to. When he says corporate yada, 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 that's what he's talking about. I'm going to let him keep playing that. I'll jump in again in a moment.
Donald Trump energized a base of support that included lots of people who were not previously participating in politics. They were not really in anyone's audience. And to the degree that Fox News eventually came around and supported Donald Trump in 2016, Trump's followers also became Fox News viewers. Fine. Over time, after Trump's first term ended, Fox News and the MAGA crowd were increasingly at odds. Trump's sort of populist, confused populist nationalism increasingly was not completely in line with what Fox News was putting out there, although Tucker...
Christ, David. Okay, so he does talk about where I was going with that. So it's the populism. A true corporate media outlet needs to avoid populism because populism eventually comes down to economics. Now, of course, Fox right-wing populism is just sharing crazy conspiracy theories. That's all it is. And Fox had to go that route because there was such a movement behind Trump. But increasingly, Fox is in danger by that very populism they were trying to show. It's just lies that their version of populism is just lies that appeal to people that are sick of getting bullied by the rich. That's all. CNN could take up that mantle, in which case, as we saw in the last segment, the folks like McConnell expect to see more and more of them on CNN. Senate Republicans expect to see more and more of them on CNN. That's the kind of messaging you're going to hear. And if you're media savvy, then if you understand, okay, these are going to be anti-populist messages, that means they're going to be very pro-corporate messages, and you start hearing more defense of corporations, favorable stories about corporations on CNN, news stories where corporations are painted as the good guys. That's why. It's because they're going for that audience.
Confused populist nationalism increasingly was not completely in line with what Fox News was putting out there, although Tucker Carlson is someone who was and continues to put out that populist rhetoric. And then the 2020 election big lie led to a bigger rift, where eventually Fox News got away from the lies that Donald Trump was telling. We now have learned, as a result of text messages released because of this defamation suit filed by Dominion against Fox News, that even the Fox News hosts that early on were pretending as though they believed Trump's lies about the election. Privately, we know they didn't. This includes Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and Laura Ingraham at minimum. So we now have a situation where the Trump crowd, the Trump part of the American right, and Trump himself are, to put it lightly, disillusioned with Fox News. They, for a while now, have been looking for alternatives. This includes, for some of them, Newsmax. This includes, for some of them, OAN. Both are to the right of Fox News. And it also includes even wackier stuff, Real America's Voice and, the Lindell TV and all.
But it's hard for them to get on cable. One, because they're not big enough. Two, because they don't draw a big enough crowd. They themselves are not big enough. Two, because they don't draw a big enough crowd. So they don't have the money to buy their way in. They cannot say that, look, you're going to make money because people are going to buy more subscriptions because of our viewership. No, they won't. And, of course, three, they say lies, which means they are a liability. This Fox Dominion suit is going to scare the hell out of AT&T and Comcast and whatever. It's going to terrify them. They are going to see two words, big and bright and bold. They're going to see legal liability. That's what they're going to see. So don't expect, even though Newsmax, if Fox goes down, Newsmax is going to have a surge in viewership. Don't expect them to translate that into cable success in these last days of cable television. No, sir. No, ma'am. We are going to have, instead, if there is a downfall of Fox, if the schism keeps going, we're going to have an exodus to the next most right-leaning network.
All of these other crazy things. But more recently, Donald Trump has been overtly going after Fox News. And he even has suggested alternatives to Fox News during his recent CPAC speech. He sort of suggested, Fox News might turn my speech off because of the things that I'm saying, etc. So over the last few months, a new option has been increasingly floated, including by Trump himself. What if CNN, now under the leadership of Chris Licht, who is new president over at CNN, who seems primarily concerned with whatever needs to be done in order to get ratings up and to get revenue up, what if CNN, which has been called fake news, which has been called failing CNN, liberal CNN for years, what if CNN became the new home for Trump supporters and maybe even for more of the American right wing above and beyond just Trump supporters?
Let's talk a little bit about that leadership. So what's Chris Licht going to be thinking? You start a new job. Imagine you've taken a new position of leadership in a company. You want to come out the gate in your first couple of years showing success. In his case, showing audience growth. He wants to show those people who will give him bonuses that he has grown the audience with his leadership. An easy way to do that will be to take Trump up on his offer. Look at it the other way. Is CNN right now known for their hard-hitting reporting that really sticks it to the powerful? No. They're known as being a relatively respectable news organization. That's it. But nobody's clamoring for the most recent CNN takes. When I pick things for this channel to show you, I try to generally show you coverage that if you click on the link in the description, you go watch the whole thing, it will be of value to you. And CNN does not make appearances as much because most of the time when they cover an issue, they tread water. They present to you the facts that can't be denied that you will inevitably hear somewhere else, and they spin it ever so much so that corporations, at the very least, don't become the bad guys. I expect that to grow their viewership, they're not going to try to appeal to lefties. They're going to try to appeal to an audience which will be losing its main source of information if things continue down the road that they are with Fox.
In a sense, it sounds crazy, but it is not as far-fetched as it seems. Under new leadership, always interested in what is our next thing, and there have been a number of recent articles and op-eds and sort of pleadings from Donald Trump as well that CNN could become the new Fox News, or at least a version of it. The idea being, if CNN framed itself as we are the place that are going, that we are the network that will show you both sides, but they use both sides really to give voice specifically to MAGA Trumpism rather than just generically the Republican Party. On Fox News, it is true that the more establishment Republican Party, people like Mitch McConnell, for lack of a better example, still have a very prominent role there. And to the extent that CNN now includes Republican voices, they are mostly establishment Republican voices. That is absolutely true. So the opportunity would be for CNN to make a slight shift the Republican voices to be more Trumpy voices, play them up, maybe put in a little bit of right-wing opinion. There were times when you had more right-wing opinion in a more official capacity on CNN, and then see what happens with the ratings. Now, I have to tell you, Trump's instincts, I think, are correct, that there is a desire from the MAGA Trumpists for something more mainstream. And by mainstream, I don't mean in terms of opinion. I mean in terms of distribution, more widely available than Newsmax and OAN, so they don't have to feel like they're relegated to channel 9000 on whatever cable network, right? There is a desire for that.
How often do I reference the fictitious website, to my knowledge, freedomeagle.net? I don't know why that stuck in my head, but every time I make fun of MAGA's sources or where MAGA got their news, I say, oh, they went on to freedomeagle.net. Yeah, that's embarrassing for MAGA folks. It's embarrassing for them. They do want an air of legitimacy. And David Pakman makes an excellent point here. I don't know why I haven't had more Pakman on of late. I'll try to keep him in the circulation because he makes a very astute point. What they are going to be looking for is an air of legitimacy. And of course, a lot of this depends on whether or not they genuinely do have this exodus from Fox. But it's a possibility. Why is it a possibility? Because Fox has been shown not to be credible. At this point, if you are not a MAGA Republican, but just, someone who doesn't pay that close of attention to economics and fell for the old Republican line, we're good with money. For the record, Republicans are terrible with money. They have always instituted economic policies which set America back, and then Democrats have to go save them. But right now, you don't have that legitimacy. If you say, I'm a Republican, where'd you get your news from? Fox News. It's embarrassing because you see all this nonsense that they're doing. And now Mitch McConnell is saying things that are in direct contrast to what they're doing. In other words, Fox can no longer provide that air of legitimacy that it used to. So they will need to find somewhere else, somewhere on cable, to air their bullshit.
And CNN, even though the right has derided it as being liberal fake news for a long time, CNN has taken an anti-Trump editorial approach on many of its programs, but is still primarily a corporatist news network. So I don't think it's as crazy as some are making it out to be. The question is this something CNN is interested in pursuing? And maybe even more importantly, just because it makes sense from a business standpoint for CNN to go more right during the Republican primary and maybe during the general election, once it's all said and done and we're beyond November of 2024, is it still a logical direction for CNN?
It's a good question to ask. Is it still a logical direction for CNN? Yeah, man. If they get the views, I mean, we're going to see in the next 365 days. More than that. We're going to see over the next year and a half if that works out for them. I would be shocked if CNN doesn't make a play for that farther right-reaching audience. This is where I have to warn you. If one of the places you're getting your news from is CNN, be cautious of what we expect to see in the near future. That is going to be a play for this right-leaning audience, which means they're going to have right-leaning programming. Just be cautious, because the transition is what's going to be dangerous. And hopefully we will have a cultural transition in this country where we can understand universally what we are seeing, which is simply propaganda for money. Well, folks, it has been a lovely 2 for Tuesday. I'm going to get to chopping this up, but I hope you'll watch the clips later. I hope you'll consider leaving a like if you enjoyed the stream and subscribing if you'd like to see more. This has been WYCD Wicket. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I'll see you next time.